Now to a TV6 News investigation. Tonight, new details about how much of a heads up city officials had before this happened. The breach of a temporary levee system in downtown Davenport. The issue of who knew what and when has been on the minds of many since the barrier failed. Tonight, we're learning more about a possible delayed warning. TV6's Chris Carter has been digging into public record requests, getting answers on what happened, and he joins us now with what he found. Chris?
Well, David, 2 months ago, this is what downtown Davenport looked like after that HESCO barrier failed, allowing the Mississippi River to flood into 2-block radius of downtown. Business owners were only given hours notice of a possible failure, but in these emails we obtained, we found the city detailed some concerns more than a day before.
It's very frustrating, you know. It's a little hurtful.
A moment of frustration from Ruby's Beer, Bikes, and Brats owner Chris Torres as he learned City of Davenport staff knew this was a possibility hours before city staff alerted businesses throughout downtown.
It's frustrating to see that they didn't get out the warning more and letting the people know that there's a chance that this could happen and you should be prepared.
TV6 exclusively obtained emails dating back 2 weeks before the barrier breach. In those emails, we learned city officials started expressing concerns 26 hours before the temporary HESCO barrier gave way. The first sign of concern TV6 found was communicated from an employee with the Parks and Rec Department after a request from Public Works for help with sandbagging. A supervisor sent an email to staff at 1:20 the day before the breach with the subject line "Flood Emergency." In the body of that email, the supervisor writes, in part, floor waters are rising more rapidly than predicted and the HESCO barrier walls downtown are subject to waters overflowing them. However, in a press conference the next morning, city staff did not use the words flood emergency. Instead, when asked about the durability of the barriers, they said this.
We have never had them up for this length of time, but we are actually adding sand in behind them to reinforce as well. So we're beefing it up in addition to adding to the top.
Less than 4 hours after that statement from Public Works Director Nicole Gleason, the emergency planner from the Scott County Emergency Management Agency sent an email at 1:27. 2 hours before the barrier would fail, it was sent to city staff, including the police chief and members of the fire department. It said trained weather spotters reported the HESCO barriers on the southeast side of Davenport appear that they will be breached, fell shortly. It goes on to say that Davenport Public Works has reported that the wall has not been breached. It also says that nothing actionable is needed at this time. About that time, businesses say they were alerted about a possible breach, but were not told that it was imminent. One business we talked to said they were never warned, but instead told TV6 they evacuated after noticing the railroad packing up a day before the failure.
We never got a warning. Had we been close to the river, there's a large potential that again, people could have got hurt.
20 minutes after the email from the emergency planner, the city of Davenport sent a press release to the media saying the city was monitoring the integrity of the flood barriers. They also asked the public to avoid areas of downtown south of 3rd Street and all other areas close to the riverfront until later this afternoon when rain subsides. TV6 showed the emails to some of those downtown business owners, including Torres. We explained who the emails were sent between, but allowed the business owners to read them in their entirety. This is how Torres reacted as he read the email from the Emergency Management Agency. You seem frustrated.
It is frustrating, to know that there was communication that was being delivered between the city that wasn't getting addressed to the businesses downtown.
30 minutes before the barrier broke, at 2:57, Communications and Preparedness Director Robin Dunn sends Public Works Director Nicole Gleason an email saying, in part, Public Works staff continues to monitor the integrity of flood protection along the riverfront. But she never addressed the email citing an imminent breach. That email from Dunn to Gleason goes on to say, the flood walls along River Drive between Perry and Betchel Park is showing some signs of fatigue. Affected property owners and tenants have been notified. Then, at 3:30, the breach. Front Street owner Tim Baldwin was standing outside when it happened.
Well, of course, it would have been nice to have advance warning, just like anybody would like to have had more warning. We could have maybe prepared better. We could have maybe removed things from our building.
Baldwin's longtime business was quickly full of water. He believes the city did what it could with the knowledge at hand, but thinks the ball was dropped. We showed him the emails as well and asked for his response.
It sounds to me like probably not enough communication between everybody that was in the know to really understand the severity of what was about to happen. I mean, it's one thing to have, the firemen and police going door to door several hours before the breach, but maybe, let us make that decision in the future if you've got information 26 hours in advance so that we could maybe make preparation.
Back at Ruby's, owner Chris Torres said the knowledge learned from these emails is disappointing. Since the flood of 19, Torres has decided to take on a new venture set to open next year, and downtown Davenport won't be considered as a location.
I just can't see bringing it to downtown Davenport unless there'd have to be a lot of changes and a lot of good secure plans in line for the downtown area and what they would be doing to support a place, especially during a time of disaster.
A decision made, the result of what some say is a lack of communication in an emergency situation.
We are what draw people here. This is what brings people to downtown, is our businesses.
Now, we did reach out to the city of Davenport several times asking for an on-camera interview regarding these emails. The city agreed to do the interview if we provided questions in advance, something that TV6 did not agree to. They did address the response, though, in a letter to downtown business owners on May 29th. In it, City Administrator Corey Spiegel said in part, quote, Davenport became so good at fighting floods over the years that the flood plan started to be viewed as complete, maybe even perfected. The flood plan has always been a living document, but it may need a shock to bring it back into rhythm with today's circumstances, including the threat of more frequent flooding at new record levels. We have asked the city to watch this report and provide us with an on-camera interview once they review it. And David, that does include Baldwin with Front Street, who called the situation spilled milk and says that he wants to move on. He now sits on the mayor's flood task force, which is looking at ways to move forward.
Now, Chris, you said that the city notified businesses. Do we know how much advance notice they had?
We don't know. The city did tell us in the moments right after that breach and in the days after that they did provide that notice to those businesses and residents downtown, but we don't have an idea of when that notification was made. It's actually one of the questions that we wanted to ask the city, have been unable to, but if we get an interview, we'll be sure to do that.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Now, TV6 also sent public records requests to the Army Corps of Engineers to see what communication it had with the city. We discovered very few communications prior to the breach, but the city did reach out for advice after it happened. Now, we are working to place all the documents used for this report on the TV6 News app. You can download the app from Google Play or Apple iTunes.